I'm Sophia. I'm 45 years old. I married my husband, who is 2 years younger than me, 15 years ago. Sophia bought a house recently, didn't she? We met at a party, and a friend who was with us casually mentioned something that worked in my favor. Despite being older, I received a passionate pursuit from my husband. Initially, I was skeptical. But I was completely charmed by his friendly smile and his kind and smart behavior when we went on a date, just the two of us. Having never been in a serious relationship with a man before, I quickly fell head over heels for him. I wanted to be liked by him, so I tried hard to embody the ideal image of a woman that men desire. Fortunately, I didn't mind housework, and having lived alone for a long time, it wasn't too hard to act like a domestic woman. After a year of dating, I happily accepted his proposal, and we got married. Then, at his request, I changed my job from a full-time employee to a part-time. The efforts I made to win his heart ended up backfiring in ways I could never have imagined. At that time, I couldn't have foreseen what was to come. It all started on a day when I came home late from work for the first time after we got married. Suddenly, the weather turned bad, and I was running home. I regretted leaving the laundry outside. With some regret, I opened the front door. And there were my husband's shoes already. He must have come home early today. That's good. It had only started raining recently, so the laundry should be safe. I entered the house, relieved. I'm home. Welcome back. Huh? What's with this sullen voice? When I looked, my husband was sitting on the sofa with a sulky face, watching TV, and the laundry was piled up beside him in a messy state. About the laundry. Yeah. Thanks for bringing it in. Don't hang it outside in this kind of weather. Aren't you embarrassed to make your husband do the housework? What? Gratitude stuck in my throat. As I stood there, bewildered, my husband let out an obvious sigh. What do you think I had you switch to part-time work for? It's so you can be a proper wife and manage the household chores. If you're my wife, you need to take care of these things properly. How outdated. And it was sudden rain, after all. But back then, I was completely smitten with him. And it was none other than myself who had portrayed the image of a domestic woman capable of handling household chores. I swallowed my complaint and agreed. I looked at the talisman a friend had given me for times like this, holding on to my frustration. My heart gradually calmed down. At that time, I couldn't bring myself to dislike my husband. A year later, we had a beautiful baby girl. It was a blessing that my parents' house was close by, and we received their support. My husband doted on our daughter, but that was it. He hardly ever helped with housework or childcare, but back then, our daughter was very attached to her indulgent father. I guess it's better than nothing that he played with her. Fortunately, my husband's salary covered our living expenses. When our daughter turned 3, I sent her to daycare and started working part-time again. And I began to use my salary to find ways to make things easier for myself. My husband wasn't one to interfere in the methods of housework or childcare since he didn't do them himself. Every time I got irritated by complaints about the house being messy or dinner being late, I reminded myself that he was just a big child who brought home the money, and that helped me maintain my peace of mind. Despite some grievances, we've been living fairly harmoniously as a typical family of 3. It happened one Saturday, after our daughter had started middle school. Not long after I had dropped our daughter off at her club activities, my husband's phone rang. Judging by the leaked conversation, it seemed to be his mother on the other end. He was scratching his head and nodding along to what seemed like a serious matter. I waited until the phone call ended before asking. Is something wrong? Yeah, do you think we could let my mom and dad stay with us for a while? Excuse me? According to him, the apartment where his parents lived was set to be demolished, and they needed a place to stay until they found a new home. With their age and concerns like heat shock or tripping hazards, it's not easy for them to just pick any place. That's okay, right? I understood what he meant. And I got where his parents were coming from. But, his parents. Feeling uneasy inside, I nonetheless nodded in agreement. What else could I do? In front of my husband, I couldn't possibly say anything negative about his parents. A month later, the in-laws arrived with a moving truck. They brought in a ton of belongings and explored the house as if it were their own, then let out a sigh. It's quite cramped, isn't it? That's because of all your stuff. I swallowed the words that were on the tip of my tongue and forced a smile. I opened the sliding doors that connect to the living room to show them. For now, I've cleared out the bedroom on the first floor for you. Please feel free to use it as your own room until you find a new place. It seems like it might be a bit chilly in here. The room is equipped with an air conditioner, so please feel free to use it if necessary. While she spread out her belongings with a look of dissatisfaction, the father-in-law took it upon himself to open the fridge. Excuse me? What? We'll be living here for a while, right? What's wrong with opening my own home's fridge? Well, yes, but they shouldn't have been here more than a handful of times. Wouldn't it have been nice to say something before rifling through the fridge? I drink 3 beers a day. I'll let it go today, but make sure to keep them cold for me from now on. Understood. This is why I didn't want it to happen. They are, to put it nicely, old-fashioned folks who believe that the elderly deserve respect. They unconditionally believe that men are superior to women and that it's only natural for men to be prioritized. Next time, let's have a boy. That was the first thing they said when our daughter was born. The problematic part is that they dote on their son, my husband, who reverts to childlike behavior in their presence. Fortunately, since their home was far away, dealing with them was previously limited to just enduring one day during the New Year and Easter holidays. But the thought of this extending for an indefinite period was disheartening. It's disheartening, but there's no helping it. I was optimistic, thinking it would just be a few months of endurance, especially with the moving season coming up. However, my hopeful assumptions would soon be completely shattered. Sophia, I've been meaning to ask, is this all we're having for dinner? After a while of living together, my mother-in-law asked with a furrowed brow. Yes. Is there something wrong with it? What's with this cheap lunch set-like menu? While it might be lacking in variety, the soup is packed with vegetables, and the pickles are homemade. Nutritionally, there shouldn't be any issues. Grandma, Mom starts cooking dinner after she comes home from work. I think that should be enough. In response to the daughter's gentle support, the mother-in-law snapped back sharply. Children who know nothing shouldn't interfere in adult conversations. I'm saying this for your and your father's benefit, you know? Yeah, that's right. Since you always have weekends off from your part-time job, you could at least prepare some meals in advance. The husband agreed. She nodded in satisfaction at her son's response. Due to being constantly roped into catering to the whims of my in-laws, like being asked to buy beer or to add more blankets because the room is cold, I haven't had the time to cook. If you understand, then go back to your studies promptly. If you want to speak so boldly, do it after you get into a university you can boast about to others, she said coldly. After hearing her harsh words, my daughter uncomfortably put down her chopsticks and quickly went upstairs to her room. Seeing my daughter's behavior, she complained about her manners, making me sigh. Do they really think she'll just stay quiet after being spoken to like that? After all, there are far worse manners to be found. Hey, that's it. Go, run. The grandfather, with a beer in one hand and chips on the side, took over the TV area, loudly enjoying a baseball game. I frowned at him, who was excitedly spitting while sitting with one knee on the sofa. Ever since my in-laws arrived, the top priority in the household has been the elder and male, my father-in-law. Next in line are my husband, mother-in-law, and then, me and my daughter. Sure, there might be situations where such a pecking order within a household is important. But how about the feelings of my daughter, who's been pushed aside and had her life upended by our freeloading in-laws? They spend their days as they please, regardless of whether it's a weekday or weekend. And they neither look for a new place nor contribute to the household in any way, including financially. I once asked them to contribute a little financially. When we were raising our son, we never once asked him for money. Are you, even if by marriage, really trying to extort money from your parents? I was yelled at hysterically. It made no sense. Moreover, after that, they wouldn't hear any of it and seemed to be splurging on hot spring trips and shopping with the money they saved. My daughter and I are nearing our limits. This weekend, as I was about to have a day off, I planned to send my daughter to my parents' house for safety. And after making sure my in-laws had gone to sleep, I cautiously brought up the topic to my husband. Hey, since your parents came, our daughter spends more time in her room. And the cost of food and utilities is higher. This is our home, yours, mine, and our daughter's. Could you talk to your parents about being a little more considerate? Huh? Oh, well, Dad and Mom will be moving out soon. Just bear with it for a little longer. My husband barely looked up from his phone, giving a vague response. Lately, he seems to be addicted to a phone game, always glued to his phone whenever he has a moment. He's been coming home late due to work and has even started working on weekends. Just the other weekend, he rushed off to a sudden business trip. Are you even listening? Yeah, I'm listening. I wonder what's so fascinating about that game. Just as I tried to sneak a peek at his phone, he abruptly stood up, hiding the screen as if it was something secretive. What are you doing? It's my privacy. Sure, a phone is a private thing. But is it really that shocking to have someone see a game screen? What are you hiding? And nothing. Nothing? Then let me see. I'm curious about what kind of phone game has you so hooked. No, because, well, my husband fiddled with his phone behind his back. Could that be why? Suddenly, a message notification sound came from the previously silent phone. It seems the silent mode was accidentally turned off. It's 11 p.m. on a Friday night. Just because it's Friday night, is it normal to be messaging at this hour? We're not teenagers, after all. Suspicious. It seems like you've received a message. Why don't you check it? I said this with a gentle smile. My husband glanced at his phone screen and forced a grin. It's, work-related. I should head to bed soon, I have work tomorrow, oh. On his way to the bedroom, the phone slipped from his hand. I quickly picked it up and glanced at the screen, where I saw a message from Emily saying, looking forward to tomorrow. I love you too. In a panic, my husband found me holding his phone right in front of him. What's this job that involves having fun with a girl? Who's Emily? I love you too, means you replied the same? My bad feeling was confirmed. My husband's eyes darted around for a moment, but then he slumped down as if resigning himself. I'm sorry. It was just meant to be a bit of fun. To put it bluntly, my husband was having an affair. The whole addicted to a phone game was a blatant lie. The other woman was a junior colleague from his company, and of course, the weekend work and business trips were lies too. My head spun from this unexpected betrayal. I thought I had been fully supporting my husband with work, house chores, and parenting. Something inside me snapped at my husband's attempt to brush it off with a silly laugh. You think it's forgivable just because it wasn't serious? Enough already. Startled by my raised voice, my in-laws woke up and appeared, rubbing their sleepy eyes. What's all this about? Perfect timing. Let's inform them about their precious son's deeds. I have something to tell you guys. I detailed the facts I had just discovered to my in-laws. My husband sat shrunk, like a scolded child. I didn't care if it seemed childish to tattle to my in-laws. They, along with my husband, should feel some shame. After finishing my impassioned explanation, I took a deep breath. That's when the father-in-law muttered, seemingly uninterested. Is that all? What? It's just a fling, right? A fling or two is just a man's nature. If you get upset over this, how will you survive the future? I can't stand this anymore. That's it. A woman would surely understand how I feel. I turned my gaze from him, who was picking his ear, to her, and was astounded. To my shock, she was comforting my husband by rubbing his back. What a misfortune to have your phone snooped on and to be yelled at. You used to be such a homely and sweet woman when you first came to greet us. And now you've turned into such a nagging wife. No wonder he wanted to have some fun. Mom, do you understand? I just wanted a bit of excitement. My husband looked up and nodded eagerly. With a sigh of exasperation, she declared. Don't make a hysterical scene over something so trivial. If he cheated, it's because you lack appeal. I was speechless. Living as if nothing happened, or rather, defending their son who cheated, was something I couldn't stand any longer. I had thought of enduring until my daughter was an adult, but I had reached my limit. Let's get a divorce. I pulled out my amulet, a pre-filled divorce paper I had kept from my younger days. My husband looked at his parents with a pleading, puppy-like gaze for help. They snorted disdainfully. We think it's fine if you two split up. You're talented and handsome. You'll have no shortage of suitors in the future. The person you're with now is young, right? You can expect a son from her. Girls are just no good, all talk and no action. I watched to see what my husband would do after being spoken about his daughter in such a manner, but he just smirked as if he had an epiphany. Yeah, that's true. Our daughter used to be so cute, but now she treats me like air. Maybe starting a new family and starting over is one option. Unbelievable. It was my husband who started neglecting our daughter first. As she grew up and became more intelligent and less adorable in some aspects, my husband began to find her bothersome. It's absurd for a father who hardly listens and interacts whimsically to expect to be liked. Any affection I had left for my husband was rapidly disappearing. Right, you admitted to cheating, didn't you? Just so you know, in the divorce, I'll be asking for a fair share of the assets. My husband's hand froze as he reached for the pen. She grabbed his hand. Asset division? Why should my son pay such a large sum when you're the reason for the affair? Rather than paying that, don't agree to the divorce. Despite their absurd logic, it looked like a 3-against-1 situation from the outside. My husband smirked, feeling secure in his position. That's right. The divorce can't happen without my agreement. If you want a divorce, you'll have to respect our opinions too. That was the last straw. All right. I've had enough. Everything about them is unbearable. My patience had finally run out. Understood. Instead of asset division, I'll just take what I bought. You can record this as a verbal agreement if you want. They visibly relaxed. Get everything sorted before you change your mind, she said, leading the way as we all opened our voice memo apps on our phones. I repeated what I just said into the app, and my husband readily agreed. Here's to the start of a new life. Eagerly, my husband began filling out the divorce papers. Late that night, after the three of them had gone to bed, I sent a message to my daughter outlining our plans. I breathed a sigh of relief at my daughter's okay response. Don't have any regrets. Be prepared. Then, I hurriedly searched for a new place. The divorce has been successfully on the process. Naturally, I secured custody of my daughter. Today is the day my daughter and I leave this house. I was busy preparing for the move. They became even more unruly, starting their drinking early in the day. Can't wait to get away from here. My daughter, who had long since grown tired of my in-laws, had already finished packing her belongings. I didn't have many personal belongings. No surprise there. Since getting married, I hardly ever shopped for fashion or entertainment for myself. It was about time for the moving company to arrive. It's good that you don't have much stuff. Saves on moving costs. The mother-in-law said with a smirk as she poked at the packed boxes. My daughter and I exchanged looks and burst out laughing. What are you talking about? We ordered the biggest truck available. Ignoring her, I walked over to the refrigerator and yanked out the power cord with force. Hey, what do you think you're doing? This is something I bought, so... I took out the massive amount of drinks and food that were inside and piled them up right there. Of course, the contents of the freezer were no exception. The floor got a bit wet, but that was no longer my concern. She grabbed my arm. I'm busy right now. I shook her off with a snap and proceeded to unplug the appliances, moving anything that could be moved. Microwave ovens, electric kettles, toasters. Along with washing machines, robotic vacuums, and dishwashers. I gave a bright smile to my stunned husband. To reduce the burden of household chores, I've poured most of my salary into these appliances. Didn't you notice? Yes. Most of the appliances in the house were purchased by me. But that's not all. Mom, I got it. My daughter came down from the second floor, holding the ceiling light. Thanks. Next, please take care of the first floor. My daughter took out a step stool and reached for the living room light. My husband and father-in-law seemed unable to grasp the situation. Because they were drunk in the middle of the day. Can't help it. I'll explain it to them. To add one more thing, the built-in air conditioner, lights, and the large furniture in the house were originally bought and used by me. Did you forget? Hearing this, my husband seemed to come back to his senses. Please, stop. Please. There's no way I'm stopping. I opened the bedroom and opened the wardrobe that was there. At some point, it had been filled to the brim with my in-laws' clothes. I'm only taking what I bought. Without any discussion, I grabbed the clothes and threw them on the floor. Among them were high-brand items I had never seen before, but that was of no concern to me. I emptied the wardrobe, then the bookshelves, and the display shelves in turn. Ah, my vanity. When I opened the drawer, it was haphazardly filled with what must have been my mother-in-law's cosmetics. Such a shame, considering there were many department store brands. It's too much trouble to take them out one by one. Right. Here we go. I flipped the drawer over. In no time, it was empty. Phew, that's refreshing. Her face, as she hurriedly gathered the cosmetics, was pale. Mom, the movers are here. My daughter called out to me loudly. Show them in. Have them move everything quickly, please. She cheerfully addressed the movers. She was much more adult than the adults in front of me, who were just flustered. It's a bit messy, but please don't mind and carry on. The movers, true professionals, proceeded without hesitation. The house was being emptied at an incredible speed. No. What remained in the house were a few pieces of furniture and a large amount of food and entertainment items that had nowhere to go. In any case, almost nothing essential for living was left. Well then, see you later. After sending off the truck with the movers, my daughter and I took a moment to catch our breath after finishing the job. I received an envelope from her and suggested she go to her grandparents' house for now. At that moment, I was yelled at from behind. After encouraging my startled daughter to go ahead, I turned around. It wasn't just because of the alcohol. My in-laws and husband were shaking with anger, their faces red. How could you do something so terrible? I was just keeping my promise. More importantly, you all should hurry up and get your moving process done. The three members of my husband's family let out a foolish sound. It's exasperating. Have you forgotten that too? I am the owner of this land and house. My husband's face turned pale in an instant. You mean, you're taking the house too? Ding dong. Correct. The land and the house have already been sold. Despite their correct guess, they seemed more to have their legs give out than to rejoice. It's strange, isn't it? Well, it's only to be expected. You can't just do something like that. Look, I bought this house. I am also the owner. I've been paying the mortgage since we got married. You didn't contribute at all. So why do you think you have a say in selling it? In fact, whether they lived with me or not, I could proceed with the sale on my own. I wasn't breaking any public rules. Above all, our home was practically empty now. I couldn't imagine them being able to buy back the original level of furniture and appliances and live as they used to. Especially after their continuous squandering. Don't worry. You had a cute girlfriend, right? You could ask her for help. At his false cheer, I snorted. Feel free to do as you like, but I don't think she'll have any money for you. I've filed for compensation from her. I wonder if this is what they mean by a deer caught in headlights. But, that's not what we agreed on. It's exactly what we agreed on. I said I wouldn't claim compensation from you. After that, I hired a lawyer and contacted Emily from your company. She might have been a dreamer suited for you, but her parents, unlike yours, were reasonable. Was it a week ago? They admitted they had spoiled their precious daughter too much and agreed to pay up. At my words, the blood drained from my husband's face. No way. He hurriedly tried to contact someone on his phone. But the voice that came through, although it was a woman's, was mechanical. Sorry, the number you have called is no longer available. As they stood there bewildered, I approached them and handed over the envelope I received from my daughter. Here, this is from her. No way. It's a letter from her. Of course, she would, considering her father and grandparents are in trouble. My husband's face lit up. But no one said anything about a letter. They eagerly opened the envelope and were shocked to see the contents. This is... Right. It's about child support. It was prepared through a lawyer and has solid legal standing. You said I didn't have to pay any property division or alimony. Did you notice? I hadn't decided anything about child support. After all, the right to receive child support belongs to the child. My husband's mouth opened and closed in silence. That child's father is you. She said she would definitely get into a university that she could be proud of in front of others. You're responsible for paying until she graduates from college. They were completely dejected. It's the least bit of kindness I could offer. I left a brochure I got from the movers in front of the three of them and left the scene. A month passed, and just as the proceeds from the sale of the land were safely deposited into my account, I began receiving desperate emails from my husband, pleading for reconciliation. According to him, my phone call exposed his affair with his girlfriend at work. The woman he was involved with resigned after losing her place. My husband was demoted and stripped of the position he had built up over the years. Now, he lives in a rundown company house in the countryside with his family of 3, huddled together. Moreover, not only did my husband and father-in-law, who had been lazy about household chores, but also my mother-in-law, who had lived at her own pace every day, were unable to perform the household tasks that my husband and father-in-law idealized, leading to daily quarrels. Their room has become filled with junk and trash, making decent living nearly impossible. Karma, isn't it? Due to his persistence, I blocked his messages and set his emails and calls to be automatically rejected, ensuring no further contact. By the way, I'm back to being a full-time employee, and my daughter is living happily and freely. Our room might be a bit smaller, but our furniture and appliances are state-of-the-art. With my daughter's help, household chores are almost non-existent. My daughter is working hard in both her club activities and studies. Despite what my mother-in-law said, she insists on working hard for her future. It seems my husband is living with his family, and I might return to my parents' home when my contract is up for renewal. My parents have always adored my daughter, their granddaughter, and she loves my parents in return. They wouldn't mind us living together. With the alimony and the proceeds from the land sale, it might be nice to remodel my parents' house to make it more comfortable and create a better environment for my parents and daughter. I opened my dresser and took out the brand new cosmetics my daughter and I recently bought together. I applied a calm shade of lipstick to my lips. In this era of a 100-year lifespan, my life is just beginning. The person reflected in the mirror looked happy. Of course, I'll continue to be happy.